Unexpected allies. The Galactic Alliance had existed for over 3,000 years, uniting hundreds of species across the spiral arm in peaceful cooperation. Most member species had evolved on gentle worlds, places where gravity was light, radiation minimal, and predators few. Their bodies were often delicate, their temperaments diplomatic by necessity. War was rare among Alliance members. Disagreements were settled through negotiation and compromise. Ambassador Tayloran of the Cygni stood before the massive viewing window of Harmony Station, his iridescent scales catching the light of the nearby star. As chief diplomat of the Alliance's expansion division, he had overseen first contact with dozens of species. The process was typically straightforward. Most spacefaring races were eager to join the prosperity and protection the Alliance offered. Ambassador, the scout ship is returning from the Edgeworld system, announced his aide, Neri. Her translucent wings fluttered with excitement. Tayloran turned from the window. Earlier than expected. Have they made contact with the inhabitants? Yes, Ambassador. Captain Ziv reports successful communication with the natives. They call themselves humans. The word was unfamiliar. In 3,000 years of expansion, the Alliance had never encountered this species. Tell Captain Ziv I'll meet her in the debriefing chamber. When Captain Ziv entered the chamber, Tayloran immediately noticed her agitated state. The captain's normally smooth tendrils were curled tightly, a sign of stress among the aquatic Merendi. Captain, you seem troubled. Did the first contact not go well? Ziv settled into the water-filled seat designed for her species. The contact was unusual, Ambassador. These humans welcomed us cordially enough, but there's something different about them. Different how? They evolved on what they call Earth, a heavy gravity world with extreme environmental variations, high radiation levels, and an extraordinary number of predator species. Ziv's tendrils curled tighter. By our classification, a Class 12 death world. Tayloran's scales flashed in surprise. The Alliance had encountered deathworld species before, but rarely above Class 8, and never one that had achieved interstellar travel. That's concerning, but not necessarily problematic. What troubled you about them? Their outpost was military in nature, heavily armed. When I inquired about this, they seemed confused by my concern. Their exact words were, "Of course we're armed. Isn't everyone?" Tayloran contemplated this. A species that considered weaponry as natural as breathing would certainly present unique diplomatic challenges. They've requested formal diplomatic relations, Ziv continued. They claim to have a small federation of colonies. 27 worlds, mostly Class 10 or higher. 27 Deathworlds. Tayloran couldn't hide his astonishment. Most Alliance species could barely survive on a Class 6 planet with extensive environmental protection. No, Ambassador. 27 worlds they've made habitable. Their home planet is apparently much harsher. Tayloran's diplomatic training took over. We'll proceed with caution but openness. Arrange for a human representative to visit Harmony Station. Let's learn more before bringing this to the High Council. 3 cycles later, the human ambassador arrived. Commander Sarah Chen was shorter than Tayloran had expected, with dark hair and eyes that seemed unnervingly alert. Her movements were quick and precise, her body clearly dense with muscle beneath her formal uniform. Ambassador Tayloran, she said, extending a hand in what she explained was a traditional human greeting. Thank you for your hospitality. The Terran Federation is eager to establish peaceful relations with your alliance. Tayloran touched her hand briefly, surprised by its warmth and strength. We welcome potential new friends, Commander Chen. The alliance has thrived through diversity and cooperation. Their discussions were proceeding well when the emergency alert sounded throughout the station. Tayloran excused himself to answer the priority communication. The face that appeared on his private screen belonged to High Counselor Vexilian, his normally luminescent features dimmed with concern. Ambassador, we have a crisis. The Krell have attacked Sanctuary Colony. Tayloran felt his scales flatten against his body in alarm. The Krell were among the few hostile species in this sector, insectoid raiders that occasionally attacked outlying colonies. But Sanctuary was no outpost. It was home to nearly 2 million Alliance citizens. How bad? Their fleet bypassed the defense grid. Ground forces have landed. The colony governor reports they're being overrun. They've issued a Class A distress call. A Class A distress call. Planetary extinction event. Sanctuary's population faced annihilation. The High Council is convening to discuss our response. We need you here. When Tayloran returned to Commander Chen, he found her standing rigid, her hand pressed to a small device in her ear. "Is everything all right, Ambassador?" she asked, though something in her demeanor suggested she already knew the answer. "A diplomatic emergency requires my attention. I apologize, but we'll need to reschedule. You have a colony under attack," Chen stated flatly. "Sanctuary, in the Proxima sector. Approximately 2 million civilians. The attackers are called Krell." Tayloran's scales flashed in shock. "How could you possibly know that?" Chen's expression remained neutral. "Your emergency broadcast was transmitted across all station frequencies. Our translators are quite good." She paused. "The Terran Federation would like to offer assistance." "That's appreciated, Commander, but this is an Alliance matter. The High Council will determine the appropriate response." "Of course." Chen nodded. "But my government has authorized me to inform you that we have a battle group within 18 hours of the Proxima sector. They could render aid while your council deliberates." Tayloran hesitated. The offer was tempting, but accepting military aid from a non-member species, especially one they'd just met, was unprecedented. "I'll convey your offer to the council. Now, if you'll excuse me." The High Council's deliberations were as Tayloran expected, cautious, measured, and frustratingly slow. Reports from Sanctuary grew increasingly desperate as the hours passed. The Krell had disabled the colony's main defenses and were systematically destroying population centers. "We should dispatch the Third Fleet," urged Counselor Genva of the militant Arxer, one of the few Alliance species with significant military tradition. "The Third Fleet is 3 days from Proxima," countered Counselor Elix. "By then, there may be no one left to save." "What about the human offer?" Tayloran suggested. "Their ships could arrive much sooner." The council chamber fell silent. Finally, High Counselor Vexlion spoke. "We know nothing about these humans or their capabilities. For all we know, they could be as dangerous as the Krell. The reports from Captain Ziv suggest they are a militaristic species," added Counselor Trull. "Do we wish to involve such a species in Alliance affairs?" The debate continued for hours while Sanctuary burned. Finally, a compromise was reached. The Third Fleet would be dispatched immediately, and a formal observation team would monitor the situation. As for the humans, they would be politely declined. When Tayloran delivered this decision to Commander Chen, her response surprised him. "I understand, Ambassador. However, I should inform you that 16 minutes ago, our government received a direct distress call from Sanctuary. Under Terran Federation law, we are obligated to respond to any distress call within our capability to assist." Tayloran's scales darkened. "You're saying?" "I'm saying that the TF's Intrepid Battle Group has already altered course towards Sanctuary Colony. They should arrive within the next 2 hours." "The Council has not authorized this intervention," Tayloran said, alarmed. Chen's expression hardened slightly. "With respect, Ambassador, we don't require authorization to answer a distress call. However, we've transmitted all relevant Terran Federation identification protocols to Sanctuary's defense network. We have no intention of adding to their difficulties." Tayloran was at a loss. The diplomatic protocols for this situation simply didn't exist. "How many ships are in this battle group?" "The Intrepid group consists of 1 heavy carrier, 2 destroyers, and 4 frigates." Tayloran's diplomatic training failed him. 7 ships, against a Krell invasion fleet. Commander, the Krell have deployed over 30 warships at Sanctuary. For the first time, Chen smiled. It wasn't a diplomatic smile. It had too many teeth. Yes, Ambassador, we know. The Council was furious, but ultimately powerless to prevent the human intervention. The observation team, already en route to Sanctuary, was instructed to monitor the human ships and report back. Tayloran requested permission to join the observation team. His request was granted, though he suspected it was because the Council wanted someone to take responsibility if the situation deteriorated further. As their observation vessel approached the Proxima sector, Tayloran stood on the bridge beside Captain Kiran, watching the tactical display with growing concern. The colony's orbital defenses have been completely neutralized, Kiran reported. Krell ground forces have secured nearly 60% of the main settlement. Civilian casualties are, he hesitated, significant. And the humans. Kiran checked his instruments. No sign yet of, wait. He adjusted the scanner. Multiple FTL signatures detected. Ships emerging now. Tayloran watched as points of light appeared on the tactical display. 1, 2, 7, then more. Many more. Captain, how many ships are you detecting? Kiran's voice was barely a whisper. 143, Ambassador. And still counting. The reckoning. Tayloran stared at the tactical display in disbelief as the human fleet materialized around Sanctuary. The observation ship's sensors struggled to categorize the diverse vessel types, massive carriers, sleek destroyers, agile frigates, and dozens of smaller craft swarming between them. That's impossible, Captain Kiran muttered. Commander Chen said they were sending 7 ships. She said the intrepid battle group had 7 ships. Tayloran corrected, his diplomatic mind racing to process this development. She never said that's all they were sending. The communications officer turned from her station. Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It's addressed to you specifically. The screen illuminated to show a stern-faced human female in a dark uniform adorned with intricate insignia. Her gray hair was cut short, and her eyes held the same unnervingly alert quality Tayloran had noticed in Commander Chen. Ambassador Tayloran, I am Admiral Helena Zhao of the Terran Federation Navy. First Fleet, we have responded to the distress call from Sanctuary Colony and are preparing to engage hostile forces. We request that your observation vessel maintain its current position for safety reasons. Tayloran found his voice. Admiral Zhao, the Alliance appreciates your response, but I must express concern about the scale of your intervention. We were expecting a small battle group. Something that might have been amusement flickered across the Admiral's face. Commander Chen informed you correctly about the intrepid group. However, when the full scale of the threat became apparent, First Fleet was redirected to support. Deathworlders don't send token help, Ambassador. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have civilians to save. The screen returned to the tactical display where the human fleet was rapidly deploying into a complex formation that surrounded the Krell ships. The precision of their movements spoke of extensive military experience. They're hailing the Krell, reported the communications officer. Moments later, the Krell response came through. A series of harsh clicking sounds that the translator rendered into text. Interference with conquest, not tolerated. Depart, or face destruction. The human fleet's response was not verbal. From the forward ships, brilliant beams of energy lanced toward the nearest Krell vessels. 3 enemy ships erupted into expanding clouds of debris before they could even return fire. By the first light, whispered Captain Kiran. Their weapons technology. What followed wasn't a battle so much as a methodical dismantling. The human fleet moved with coordinated precision, focusing overwhelming firepower on one section of the Krell formation at a time. When Krell ships attempted to flee, smaller human vessels would cut off their escape routes, herding them back toward the main fleet's weapons. Admiral Zhao is requesting permission to deploy ground forces to assist the colony, the communications officer announced. T. Lauren hesitated. The council had not authorized this intervention, but Sanctuary was being overrun. Every moment they delayed meant more civilian deaths. Tell them. He made his decision. Tell them they have my personal authorization. I'll handle the council. Within minutes, dozens of human dropships were streaking toward the colony's surface, bypassing the remaining Krell air defenses through sheer speed and numbers. Ambassador, we're receiving visual feeds from the colony's surviving security network. Captain Kieran said. You should see this. The tactical display split to show grainy footage from the colony surface. Krell warriors, each standing nearly 3 meters tall with armored exoskeletons and massive pincers, were moving through the settlement, systematically destroying buildings and slaughtering civilians. They were met by human soldiers emerging from dropships. T. Lauren had expected the humans to be overwhelmed by the physically superior Krell. Instead, he watched in astonishment as the smaller humans moved with incredible speed and coordination. They didn't engage the Krell directly. Instead, they used the environment to their advantage, setting traps, creating choke points, and employing weapons that seemed designed specifically to penetrate Krell armor. They're fighting as if they've done this before, Karen observed. Perhaps they have, T. Lauren replied. Commander Chen mentioned they've colonized worlds harsher than their homeworld. I doubt the Krell are the most dangerous things they've encountered. As the battle progressed, T. Lauren noticed something else. The humans were prioritizing civilian protection over pursuing enemy forces. They established secure zones and evacuation routes, moving Sanctuary citizens to safety before advancing. It took less than 6 hours for the human forces to secure the colony. The few surviving Krell warriors were surrounded and captured. While in orbit, the remnants of the Krell fleet had been reduced to drifting debris. T. Lauren received permission to shuttle down to the colony's surface, accompanied by a small delegation from the observation team. They found the human command post established in the colony's administrative center, one of the few buildings still intact. Admiral Zhao met them personally, her uniform now bearing scorch marks and what appeared to be blood, though whether human or Krell was impossible to tell. Ambassador, welcome to what's left of Sanctuary. Her voice was grim but controlled. We've established field hospitals and temporary shelters. The Krell targeted civilian infrastructure specifically: power, water, medical facilities. We're bringing in support ships now. Admiral, T. Lauren struggled to find words adequate to the situation. The Alliance owes you a debt we cannot easily repay. But I must ask, why this level of response? You committed an entire fleet to save a colony that isn't even yours. Admiral Zhao's expression softened slightly. Walk with me, Ambassador. She led him through the ruined settlement where human soldiers worked alongside colony survivors to treat the wounded and clear debris. Despite the devastation, there was a sense of order emerging from chaos. 200 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself in what we call the Last War, Zhao explained. When we finally reached the stars, we made a promise. Never again would we stand by while innocent lives were threatened, whether human or otherwise. She stopped at a makeshift medical center where human doctors were treating injured colonists. Every human out here, including myself, is descended from survivors. It's in our blood to fight against extinction, Ambassador. When we heard that 2 million people faced annihilation, sending a token force wasn't an option. T. Lauren watched as a human medic gently treated a child from one of the avian species that made up Sanctuary's population. Despite their obvious physiological differences, the care in the humans' movements was unmistakable. The Council believed that because your species evolved on a harsh world, you would be inherently aggressive, dangerous. Zhao actually laughed, a short, sharp sound. We are dangerous, Ambassador. Extremely dangerous. But we choose where to direct that capacity. She gestured at the destruction around them. The Krell made their choice when they attacked civilians. We made ours when we responded. Before T. Lauren could reply, a human officer approached. Admiral, we've intercepted communications from a second Krell fleet. They're approximately 3 days out, and the signals suggest they're significantly larger than the force we just defeated. Zhao nodded as if this was entirely expected. Prepare the fleet for defensive positioning. Initiate Protocol Aegis for the colony, and send a message to Earth. Request reinforcement from 2nd and 3rd fleets. Yes, Admiral. As the officer departed, Zhao turned back to Tayloran. It seems our work here isn't finished, Ambassador. Your Alliance fleet is what? 2 days out. Just under 2 days, yes. Then we'll hold until they arrive. After that, we can coordinate our response. Tayloran's scales shifted in patterns of confusion. You would commit even more ships, more lives, for an Alliance colony. Admiral Zhao looked at him with those unnervingly alert eyes that seemed characteristic of her species. We're neighbors now, Ambassador, and humans protect their neighbors. She paused. Besides, from what we've seen, the Krell don't discriminate between humans and non-humans. Better to deal with them here than wait for them to find our colonies. As Tayloran prepared to return to the observation ship, he received an urgent message from the High Council. They had reviewed the battle reports and footage from Sanctuary. The Council was convening an emergency session to discuss a formal alliance with the Terran Federation. Looking back at the human soldiers working tirelessly to save a colony of aliens they'd never met before, Tayloran understood something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The Alliance had always seen itself as a civilizing force in a dangerous universe, bringing order and peace to the stars. Now they had encountered a species born of danger, shaped by it, yet choosing to use their strength not for conquest, but for protection. The humans were indeed dangerous, but perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. When Admiral Zhao offered her hand in that peculiar human gesture of greeting, Tayloran took it without hesitation. Her grip was firm, her skin warm against his scales. To new alliances, Ambassador. To new understandings, Admiral, he replied, his scales shifting to the brightest pattern of hope his species could display. And to neighbors worth having.